Hello, this is Susan Kokinda with Promethean Action. I'm joined here with Brian Lantz, and we are going to be resuming a series of podcasts that we initiated last year, which focus on President Trump's Agenda 47 policies. These are the policies that he has pledged to implement as the 47th President of the United States. And they cover a variety of policies from manufacturing policy, energy policy, national security policy. He's pledged to take on the deep state, obviously, a whole range of cultural policies. So, we explored a number of these in a series of podcasts last year. And I think a lot of people watch these podcasts and they said, I'm for that. That sounds like a good thing. But I think what people are missing is that implicit in these policies put forward by President Trump is a direct challenge to the existing system. They're not just some good ideas that you might be able to implement because you think they're good ideas. They represent a direct threat to the entire globalist architecture, to what Donald Trump himself has called the globalist financier class. So what we want to look at is the contrast, which is implicit in President Trump's policies, which we call the American system. He calls economic nationalism, and contrast those to what is coming out of most, if not all, of the conservative institutions which are trying to shape the policies for President Trump's new administration as the 47th president. And we hope in the course of the exploration of this question, the difference between Trump's Agenda 47 policies, and in particular, the policies that have been put forward by the Heritage Foundation, which has put out a 500 or 600 page tome entitled
940 pages.
Oh, sorry. 1,000 page tome entitled Mandate for Leadership, The Conservative Promise, which is a compilation of what they hope will be the policies in many areas for this administration. We hope that in the course of this, we'll give people a deeper understanding of the difference between the American system and not the globalist system, but its actual species brand name, which is the British system of economy. And as I said, we've picked Heritage and their 1,000 page blueprint for a particular reason. It's perhaps the most prominent. It pulled many groups into this project, but it's also an organization which our movement, founded by Linda LaRouche, has tangled with over many decades on precisely this question of the difference between the American system and the British system. And in fact, next week, we're going to do a podcast which is going to go into a little bit of the history of the Heritage Foundation and its actual British pedigree. Back in the 1970s or 80s, I believe it was, one of its leading figures, Stuart Butler, made the point that the purpose of the Heritage Foundation was to get Americans to think more like the British. So again, we hope that in the course of our discussions on specific policies, people will begin to get a better handle on why there is such a species difference between these two policies, these two systems, and why Trump's Agenda 47 policies are very different in terms of their intention and their underlying assumptions than what we're getting from the Heritage Foundation. So, Brian, why don't we just start by giving our viewers a sense of how Trump is approaching the question of energy and its importance in our economy?
I think most people know that Trump has called for creating or recreating the United States as a manufacturing superpower. And to create the United States again as a manufacturing superpower requires, as again, President Trump emphasizes, that we've got to build hundreds and hundreds of power plants. We got to drill, baby, drill. But we also have to build hundreds and hundreds of power plants. I'm quoting him. because we don't have the energy to run a manufacturing economy. We have brownouts and blackouts. I don't have to go through the details of that. We flatlined in terms of energy consumption with deregulation back in 2000, 2002, thereabouts. The effect of deregulation was we stopped producing more energy. Our population grew by about 70 million people. What are they living on? Where's their energy coming from? Only the deindustrialization of the United States allowed there to be enough energy to barely spread around and keep the lights on. So to rebuild the United States, you've got to do what Trump is calling for. And Promethean action, we're calling for 1,000 gigawatts of power to be created over the next generation, 25 years. You got to double the capacity of the United States in terms of power, just to provide for a manufacturing base for the United States economy and related measures, the supply chains and all that. You got to source at home, you got to produce the energy. And in fact, in producing the energy, you build out the supply chains and everything, building nuclear power plants, as well as coal and natural gas. Building nuclear power plants is going to build a new technological base for the entire U.S. economy. So that's implicit in what Trump is calling.
And I think your focus on nuclear, and I would take it to the next step, which is the next platform of energy, which is nuclear fusion, is just as vital as the amount, the quality of energy, and advancing our sources of energy is just as important as the amount of energy. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. The increase of energy flux density in the economy is the measure of our progress. It has been, will be. There is nothing of that. There is nothing of that in this Heritage Foundation consensus report of a geschmear of conservative groups that have been hogtied and pulled together and put under one roof. They're not talking about, they don't talk about developing fusion. It's not even mentioned. Fusion energy isn't even mentioned in their report. Nuclear, they want to shut down, for all practical purposes, they want to slash the funding of the Office of Nuclear Energy. That's the department, or that's the office within the Department of Energy, responsible for developing power science, advanced nuclear processes. They run the Idaho National Laboratory, which is the major test tube center for incubating small modular reactors and other Generation 4 nuclear reactors. They want to slash it. They're saying, hey, existing nuclear power plants, they can make it or break it in the market, in the magic of the marketplace. Government should have nothing to do with keeping these nuclear power plants going. That would shut down power plants in Michigan, California, and elsewhere, right? Because in this deregulated market that produced no energy since 2000, right? Since the year 2000, that produced no additional electric power in the United States, in this deregulated wind, solar, Biden now economic nightmare, right? Nuclear power cannot compete because everything's been turned into a commodity. And nuclear is not a commodity. It's an investment in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point, people to begin to think through, because we look at the current administration and their imposition of the green scam policies and their overweening regulation to accomplish their insane policies. And then you tend to get a kind of reaction from people saying, oh, I don't like regulation. I want to deregulate everything. But I think what you're saying about what's happened to energy over the recent decades is extremely important. And of regulation or deregulation, it's a discussion we have quite a bit in discussions with our supporters when we're thinking about this, because it's not an abstract question. It's a question of, are you in a system which intention is to grow physically and to increase the productivity of your workforce? That's the American system. And under those circumstances, there are things you want to regulate to ensure, as we used to have, cheap, reliable energy that you could do this.
Yes, there is such a thing as public works. You don't have competing sewer systems running through your city, competing to provide sanitation to your communities, all right? Likewise with roads. You can take any number of examples. Public works, right? Energy. Just build it and forget about it. It does the job. You have a utility, it's an integrated utility. It plans for the future. It invests for the future. After 2000, in the deregulation of U.S. energy across the country, investment in deregulated energy in terms of capital investment dropped to 10% of what it was. 10% by 2014. The only investment going on even today is largely distribution and related sorts of things, transmission and distribution. It's not the production of additional energy. Under deregulation, there has been no capital investment. But by 2014, people started to freak out, including in the government, and said, hold on a second, there's no capital investment going on in this deregulated system. And so Wall Street, of course, in cahoots with the deep state, said, hey, if you subsidize it, we'll finance wind and solar because we can throw those babies up and overnight. They may only last 20, 25 years, but we'll throw them up. We'll produce some energy. If you subsidize it and guarantee us a profit, we can do that. And that's what we got with Bidenomics. It's a no growth system. Even now, we're not growing the actual baseload power capacity, the 24/7, 365-day a year capacity that we require. Instead, the Heritage Foundation and companies say, the Department of Energy, that's about nuclear weapons and national security. Forget about building a greater future. Let's get on board with the neocons again and go to war. That's the agenda, and that's what's reflected in the Heritage Foundation report.
Yeah, and I think it just makes this stark contrast between, again, I'll come back to this and we will keep coming back to this, two different systems. One is a financial system, as Trump calls it, the globalist financier class, where everything is an income stream for the financial parasites. That's measuring everything from the standpoint of your ability to make a financial profit versus what we used to have. And again, Trump has given it the name economic nationalism, and we prefer to give it the name the American system, which is more precise and more historic. And Trump has used that term on a few occasions.
Yes.
But the purpose of your economy is not to provide an income stream for some very powerful financial interests. The purpose of your economy is to produce and is to make your workforce more productive for the future. And these are two completely competing different ideas, which I think we'll see spun out more in terms of other areas of what the Heritage Foundation and other groups have put forward. There was one particular quote, and then you can add anything that you want to add, but from the Heritage Foundation report, which really struck me, because it really does show that for them, the question of human advance based on scientific discovery is an afterthought. And in one of the sections where they're talking about the role of the national labs, which should be the driver for our economy, because that's where the new breakthroughs are going to come from, they said there should be a review to measure and reprioritize and consolidate DoD programs based on a range of factors, including first, the degree of relationship to national security, second, the furtherance of energy security, cyber, but also the international aspects, and really as an afterthought, and the importance to scientific discovery and advancement. So, Brian, is there anything else you want to add in terms of this really stark contrast between these two approaches?
The oligarchy always comes at it from both sides of the street. They come at us from the left via Biden and the socialists and social democrats, but they come at us also from the right to destroy, between the two, destroy the American system. The Heritage Foundation proposes that we rename the Department of Energy the Department of Energy Security and Advanced Science. could go further on this, but they're talking about a national security state. This is exactly what we've seen with big tech, with the attempt to suppress public discourse, deliberation on the future of the nation. Trump is opening the way to the future for the nation. We see that with the growing MAGA movement and the broader movement around that. And that's where we've got to go. And Prometheus Action is committed to that. And for that purpose, we've got to understand the American system, where government plays the positive role of providing the public works, providing the infrastructure that the private sector, the businesses, the industry, and homes need, working from the standpoint of investing now so that we have the future we need. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, I would just point out yesterday, President Trump spoke in Nashville, and he made the point again. The gravest threat to our country is not from without. It's from within.
Yeah.
He is less worried about Russia and China and the other giants out there that we're supposed to go out and slay, which is the focus of Heritage and much of the rest of this. And he's focused on the enemy within, which is this rot, which has undone the American system of political economy over the decades. All right, we've taken a first stab at the difference between these two outlooks. One is implicit in President Trump's Agenda 47 policies, and we hope to make it much more explicit. And the second is this, as you say, the conservative side of the imperial outlook. The imperial outlook plays all sides against the middle. And I think as President Trump gets closer and closer to locking up the nomination, they are putting more and more of their resources to try and batten down the hatches within the MAGA movement to be able to contain it and subvert it. And what we intend to do through Promethean Action and Promethean PAC, which are the new names for LaRouche PAC, for those of you who are familiar with us in that previous version, what we hope to do is really give people the understanding, the sense of the power of the American system and actually finally liberating us from all aspects of globalism. So, Brian, thank you. And we will continue through this 1,000-page Heritage report, finding other stark contrasts.
Yes, and asserting the American system alternative, along with Agenda 47. Yep.
Okay, thank you. See you soon.